One of the things I love to do is find advice from successful people, whether they accumulated a lot of wealth or they achieved their version of success in life, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of happiness, whatever. And I've stumbled across a lot of advice from a lot of successful people. A lot, like hundreds. And it's oftentimes in the form of video or something I read. Occasionally it's in person. And so I want to just share with you one instance of this that I found in this book. The book is Money Master the Game, 7 Simple Steps to Financial Freedom. It's his newest book. It's a best-selling book, and it's by Tony Robbins, the peak performance coach. And in this book, he actually has this whole section where he interviews, I would say, 4 or 5 billionaires and maybe 3 or 4 millionaires. All of them are very successful and they manage money or they have something to do with personal finance and money management. And so, without further ado, let me read you this man's piece of advice. It's kind of generic, but not really once I explain it to you. So, the question was asked, how do you go from the vision of a young man that you were who said, I really want to help people look out for the customer, to building a multi-trillion-dollar business? What would you tell people they should really focus on? If someone was starting out brand new, what would be the advantage you would try to give them looking to start a business? This was what he said. Well, getting all the education and the practical experience and then having the patience to do it day in and day out. Day in and day out. It's not easy, let me tell you. It's like the restaurateur serving great food every meal. It's not easy, but that's how you make a great restaurant. That's how you make a great car dealership. Service every day. You can't miss the ball. You've got to hit the ball out of the park every day with service. And the same with technology. In our lifetime, we've seen many companies go in the tank because they weren't able to innovate. Or actually, they didn't figure out a product or service that really served the customer well. They lost their customers. Never lose a customer. Figure that one out. So this is just very fascinating. Let me just break this down to you. It may seem like generic advice, but it's actually decent advice. So in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's a fascinating book, also a bestseller. I have my personal opinions on it. It's not the best thing ever, but there's this one story in the book that just illustrates the importance of not losing customers and really understanding what the customers value. Long story short, these people took over a restaurant and they didn't understand their customers, so they were like, we're going to get rid of these items on the menu and just follow this. And initially, nothing really happened. But after a few months, the customers stopped coming in because they lost one of their best items on the menu, which was the soup item. And initially, it seemed like the customers didn't really care, but over time, it destroyed the business. So that really correlates with what this person says. As far as the point about consistency and keeping it going day in and day out for a sustained period of time, that's something Steve Jobs has mentioned. Like, you can do this for maybe a couple weeks, but can you keep this level of consistent quality for years on end? That's very tough to do. As far as that point about innovation goes, I think that's very important. Sam Walton, who's probably made the most money in the history of mankind through business, or one of the people who's made the most in mankind through through Walmart, starting with his first Walmart store and branching out. One of the things he says is change. He's always embracing change and he's always adapting to new technology and staying vigilant. And before I read that book, I would have not expected someone as old-fashioned or something like Walmart, which nowadays is this big chain, to be what it is and to embrace change. Like you would expect someone like him to be part of like the old timers who are scared of change, but not Sam Walton. No, he was someone who was very vigilant, adapted to change, was on top of it and embraced it, and that allowed him to flourish, and it allowed Walmart to, you know, keep pace with all the changes that took place. Because even for something like a discount retailer, whatever industry you would think is the least affected by technology or whatever have you, that's not always the case. There's constantly impacts and things going on in the industry. So vigilance keeps your company from going bankrupt or stagnant or old. Let's move on to another passage which I think is quite useful. Again, it's really awesome when you finally stumble across these, rare pieces of advice where, this could have cost you thousands upon thousands of dollars to get from a successful person, just to get in front of this person, just to be able to talk to him and ask for this advice. Nowadays, if you look for it, you can get it close to free through my videos, through the internet, through these books that are fairly cheap. I mean, it's just astounding. Like, you can't even get close to these people. And nowadays, you can indirectly in certain ways. Did you know that an hour lunch for Warren Buffett, that cost about $1.5 million. He auctions off one lunch every year. Proceeds go to charity. And the price has been climbing every year at an exponential rate. That's how much his time is worth. So let me see if I can find it. Just one last piece of advice. I think it may be useful to you. So here's what he says. He says, lots of people out there in the world really do need more resources. They don't have the education. Sometimes they don't have the motivation. Maybe they don't sense the opportunity in front of them. How to perceive the opportunity that is right there? You look around at these other guys who have been successful and you think, I can do that. How do you sense that? I don't know. So this is an interesting quote by Charles Schwab. And before I analyze it myself and give you my interpretation, I just want to really quickly plug my Billionaire book club, because this is very relevant to that. What it is, and there'll be a video explaining that, it's basically a book club where I review books written by billionaires. And there's actually a lot of them out there. And so Charles Schwab, it's either him, I'm pretty sure it's him. He is an individual who's worth over $1 billion, and he's written quite a few books. So I will be doing a book review on some of his more relevant books. He wrote a book for anyone over 50 years of age on saving, retirement, and investing. And he also wrote one just in general upon investing in around 2008. So it's a fairly recent book. And it's just about finance, and it's written for the average person. So that's going to be very helpful if you want to make money. Anyhow, so dissecting this quote real quick, or not really, I don't want to use the word dissecting, my interpretation on it. So motivation, obviously very important. Sometimes that comes from hunger. Hunger can come from a lot of sources. Pain, lack of something, scarcity, poverty. It could come from wanting to achieve success, to prove people wrong, to show that you are actually worth something, that you have potential when everyone tells you you aren't. It can come from a lot of sources. So find where your motivation comes from. Some of it is just based off your environment. Like the person who is born into an inherited family with millions of dollars, it's going to be tough for him to find that motivation compared to someone who's gone through a lot of pain and struggle. So that goes into the whole philosophical debate about, is your advantage really an advantage? Um, Resources, education. If you're watching this video, be very grateful because most likely you have access to the resources and education that you want. Don't give me those excuses. If you can watch this video on the internet, you're already blessed. There are plenty of free online courses. I mean, not even putting courses aside, like if you do enough digging, you can find anything you want online. Like if you want to learn about accounting, boom, it's free online. If you want to learn about computer programming, there are free websites on there teaching you. If you want actual courses, which I think is unnecessary, I mean, sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's unnecessary, but Princeton, UPenn, they're offering like MBA courses for free. There should be no excuses. So be grateful. As far as opportunity, how do you sense that? Well, for me, I don't think it was something I could sense. I would say that when you read the right books, Napoleon Hill is a great author to start reading. Tony Robbins too. Not this book in terms of that sort of stuff, but his other books. You will start realizing how much opportunity certain countries hold and how much optimism is out there in the world and how much is out there for you to grasp. There's just so many examples. Napoleon Hill, he just lays example upon example upon example out there for you. It's just like this man, homeless. He used these laws of success that I've taught you: creativity, sense of purpose, enthusiasm, persistence. And he created all this wealth from this horrible situation by just moving dirt around or turning this piece of land into a farm or parking garage. He goes just like on and on and on. So I recommend Laws of Success. And let me just do a quick book review on Money Master the Game right here. I've almost finished the whole book now. I do think you want to take some of the stuff he says with a grain of salt. He does, you know, I would say there's certain things he says about money. It's kind of, you know, not misguided, but from a novice perspective, bless his heart. But it does seem to come from a standpoint of just, I'm talking to these people. I really don't know much about finance myself, but I'm trying to learn and just grasp it and take as much as I can from these millionaires and billionaires who have been studying finance and managing money for decades. But for the average person, there are plenty of points in this book that it will open your eyes. So my advice is, if you read this book, focus on the points where he's pretty much telling you, look at how these people are scamming you or taking your money. Because I definitely agree with his points on that. His points on passive investing, I agree with. As far as his points on asset allocation and, you know, his strategies on, okay, you should use this all-weather fund. You know, long story short, for the average person, I don't think it's bad at all. But just do your research, and I mean, for the average person, which you probably are, and you're just clueless about money, I do think, generally speaking, it's a good standpoint, and it's a good book, and I would recommend reading this rather than many others because it's a good starting point, and it will just show you about all the things you should avoid and all the scams people are doing to take your money. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. As always, like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching this video. Hopefully I will see you later in my next video. Peace. One thing I always find when I learn about a successful person is how their lives have been very long, and it's oftentimes taken many, many years for them to achieve success, and they've gone through a lot of failures, a lot of very difficult, dark times, and a lot of problems and obstacles before they finally achieve